Your kid just got sent home with a note. Disruptive in class. What'd they do? Asked the teacher, why do we multiply fractions by flipping one upside down? Then demanded a foolproof. At home, they explained black holes using a coffee mug, but they can't find their shoes sitting right in front of them. Living with Einstein. If Einstein also lost his car keys 6 times a day. To teachers, that's a problem. To you, it's exhausting. But here's the truth. Your difficult kid might not be struggling. They might be gifted. Stick around. We're unpacking signs of intelligence people mistake for chaos, including one so confusing, parents call sleep specialists for it. The question spiral. You know that kid who can turn a simple question into a full-blown philosophy dissertation? Why is the sky blue? Becomes, who decided to call that color blue? Which becomes, what if we all see different colors but just agree to call them the same names? And then ends with, how do we know anything is even real? Teachers call this disruptive. Parents call this exhausting. Scientists, they call this the starting line for Nobel Prizes. UCLA research shows intelligent kids ask 40% more questions than their peers, but adults only give satisfying answers about 10% of the time. So what happens? Most kids stop asking. Smart kids, they just get sneakier about it, ambushing you with existential discussions at the grocery store. Last week, my neighbor's 8-year-old asked his babysitter why bedtime exists if the sun is still awake in other countries. When she said, because it's nighttime here, he replied, but if time is relative, like Einstein said, isn't bedtime just a social construct? The babysitter stood there clutching dinosaur pajamas, having an existential crisis, and probably Googling philosophy jobs for 8-year-olds. These kids aren't being difficult. Their brains are wired to leapfrog. When they ask why the grass is green, their thoughts are already sprinting from photosynthesis to evolution, to whether aliens might be purple. But we'd never know because all our science is built on green-based life. Questions are just the warm-up. The real battle begins when your child starts cross-examining your rules like a junior lawyer. The loophole finder. Some kids follow rules. Smart kids, they put rules on trial. You said no running in the hallway, but what about speed walking? Technically, I'm maintaining ground contact, so by definition, this isn't running. That's not defiance. That's precision thinking with tiny lawyer energy. Johns Hopkins research shows gifted kids often have advanced moral reasoning, which means when rules feel arbitrary, their brains go straight to Supreme Court mode. Congratulations, you didn't raise a rule breaker, you raised a technicality assassin. The kid who argues that weekend homework violates the separation of school and personal time, not disrespectful, that's advocacy training. The one who points out that the no talking rule doesn't technically ban passing notes, that's a future contract negotiator at work. But here's the problem. Schools want compliance, not constitutional analysis. So the loophole finder gets labeled argumentative instead of perceptive. And here's the truth. Because I said so isn't enough for these kids. They crave systems that actually make sense. They're not challenging authority, they're challenging the logic of authority. But arguing rules is nothing compared to the chaos of a perfectionist brain stuck at the starting line. 𝐘𝐈𝐒 has a quick favor first. Apparently, 97% of people who watch these videos never subscribe. That means your child is statistically more likely to argue about bedtime than you are to click it. Smash that button. Join the rare 3% who actually do. The perfectionist paralysis. Ever seen a kid stare at a blank page for an hour, then suddenly crank out brilliant work at the very last second? Welcome to the perfectionist procrastinator. Smart kids don't delay because they're lazy. They delay because their brains are running way too many simulations. Stanford research shows gifted kids can see the gap between their big vision and their current skills, which makes starting feel impossible. While other kids are happily gluing foam planets to a poster board, the perfectionist brain is designing NASA-level models, precise orbital mechanics, accurate scaling, maybe even LED lights to mimic star temperatures. Suddenly, cardboard and glitter glue feel like failure. And here's where most parents panic. But this stall isn't laziness. It's actually the warm-up act for brilliance. But here's the magic. The second a deadline hits, the overthinking switch flips to action. They start optimizing, start creating, and produce something incredible. Because all that wasted time was actually mental rehearsal of 50 different solutions. Perfectionism is one thing, but some kids take it further, turning recess itself into a full-blown anthropology experiment. The social scientist. While most kids are playing tag at recess, some are sitting off to the side, observing the playground like they're anthropologists discovering a new tribe. Teachers worry, do they have social skills? But your kid? They're running a full-blown research study. Third graders form hierarchies based on lunchbox coolness. When girls cry, everybody stops to help. But when boys cry, they get ignored. Clear gender bias detected. That's not antisocial. That's advanced social science. University of Iowa research shows gifted kids often struggle with same-age friendships. Not because they can't connect, but because they're literally thinking on a different channel. So while classmates are excited about recess games, your child is analyzing, why is Jake popular? And does this playground hierarchy look suspiciously like the corporate ladder? Here's the truth. Sometimes highly intelligent kids feel lonely because they're searching for equals in a world that doesn't speak their language. They often connect better with older kids or adults, where conversations actually match their level. Quiet observation is only half the story. The real surprise is what you'll find when you step into their bedroom. The creative chaos theory. Walk into some kids' bedrooms and it looks like a science museum exploded. Every surface is covered with half-finished inventions, art projects that resemble modern abstract expressionism, and piles of random objects they're studying. Parents see mess. The kid, they see research laboratories. Gifted kids often have divergent thinking, the ability to connect totally unrelated concepts. That chaos, it's how their brains process information non-linearly. Studies even show cluttered environments can boost creativity. Translation? That messy bedroom might be less disaster zone, more innovation hub. Those 17 rocks on the dresser? Not clutter, mineral composition studies. The mountain of bottle caps? Investigations into manufacturing processes. And when they take apart your old radio, it's not destruction, it's engineering research into how invisible waves become sound. Pro tip, give them broken electronics to dissect. Future inventors are born that way. Even their art doesn't look normal because they're expressing ideas too complex for standard techniques. That sculpture made from paper clips and dental floss? It's not junk. It's a three-dimensional representation of anxiety. And honestly, more insightful than most adults could manage. Creative chaos is one thing, but when their emotions kick in, it's like turning the volume knob past max. The emotional amplifier. Some kids feel everything at maximum volume. They sob during nature documentaries when an elephant family gets separated, then spend the afternoon drawing reunion pictures and asking if the baby ever found its mom. Parents worry, are they too sensitive? Psychologists call this overexcitabilities, basically a supercharged sensitivity common in gifted kids. It can show up in 5 ways: movement, senses, imagination, deep thinking, and big emotions. Here's what that looks like in real life. When their sibling gets a slightly bigger piece of cake, it's not about dessert. Their hyperactive sense of justice is genuinely distressed. Unfairness doesn't just feel wrong, it hurts. When their best friend moved away, they couldn't sleep for 3 nights because they were processing their own sadness and their friend's sadness at the same time. In crowded places, not antisocial, just overstimulated. Every sound, light, and social cue comes in at once. What you tune out as background noise feels like chaos in surround sound. To you, it's a birthday party. To them, it's Coachella inside a blender. But here's the flip side. This intensity also creates extraordinary empathy. These kids often become therapists, artists, or advocates because they don't just notice emotions, they absorb them. Emotions at max volume are intense, but boredom in a gifted brain? That's a whole new level of disruption. The boredom rebel. Picture this. A kid finishes their math worksheet in 4 minutes, then spends the next 26 minutes designing paper airplanes and running aerodynamic tests across the classroom. Teacher sees behavior problems. The real issue? Brain boredom. Research shows gifted kids who aren't challenged enough often act out, not because they're difficult, but because their brains are starving for stimulation. They crave complex problems, but get stuck repeating skills they mastered long ago. That's why a child who breezes through advanced novels rolls their eyes at spelling lists. They're not being defiant, they're protesting busy work. It's like asking a teenager who drives to keep practicing with a tricycle. Technically useful once, but way beneath their level now. So what happens? They turn into class clowns, because even negative attention is more interesting than none. And the irony? Their disruptions, like elaborate paper airplane experiments, are actually more intellectually rigorous than the assignment. Instead of recognizing a curriculum mismatch, schools often punish boredom. But intelligence without challenge doesn't sit quietly. It pushes back. Give these kids advanced problems, and the troublemaker suddenly lights up with focus. Boredom is just one misunderstood sign. The next one is so confusing, parents often call in sleep specialists, but it's actually genius at work after dark. The midnight thinker. Bedtime and bedtime. It's diplomatic negotiations. If humans evolved from fish and fish don't sleep in beds, why can't I sleep like fish do? That's not stalling. That's a brain that refuses to clock out. Gifted kids often have delayed sleep cycles because their minds don't shut down easily. While you're begging them to brush their teeth, they're busy connecting dots between infinity, death, and whether numbers actually exist in nature. To them, bedtime isn't rest. It's wasted thinking time. While their brains are busy weaving together everything they learned that day, sleep feels like missing out. Their FOMO isn't just social, it's intellectual. And here's a wild part. Many adults who were night owl kids say their best ideas still come after midnight when distractions are gone. So that bedtime resistance, it's less rebellion, more protecting prime creative hours. Which brings us full circle. The very traits schools punish as laziness or defiance may be the clearest proof of brilliance. The reality check. Here's a part schools don't tell you. Traditional good behavior often clashes with true intelligence. Classrooms reward compliance, but brilliance, it usually looks like questioning, experimenting, and pushing boundaries. So when your child looks difficult, it might not be defiance at all. What looks like backtalk could be curiosity. What seems lazy might be perfectionism. What gets labeled antisocial could actually be advanced social analysis. Intelligence isn't just test scores. It's creative thinking, emotional depth, intense curiosity, complex problem solving. And those traits, they rub against systems built for conformity, not creativity. Our education system was designed for average, linear learners who follow directions. Kids who think differently often get mislabeled as problems, when really they're showing gifts the system doesn't know how to measure. That's why your job isn't to fix them, it's to advocate, support, and help them develop tools for a world that doesn't always value complex thinkers. Your intense, quirky, questioning child isn't broken. They're brilliant in ways our systems aren't designed to recognize. The very traits that make them challenging today, curiosity, intensity, perfectionism, big emotions, are the same ones that'll make them tomorrow's innovators, problem solvers, and creators. History's greatest minds, almost all were difficult children. They asked too many questions, challenged too many rules, thought too differently for their times, and thank goodness they did. Which of these signs do you see in your own kid? The question spiral, the loophole lawyer, or the midnight thinker who treats bedtime like a board meeting? Drop a comment and tell me which one hit home. I read every single one. Your difficult child might just be wired for something bigger. And sometimes the best way to see it clearly is to laugh about it together.